All right, so meet Jill and Eve. They're going to help me demonstrate what cultural humility looks like in practice. So I'm going to go through my interaction with Jill, a mother who I'm supporting, and I'm going to demonstrate what it would look like if I integrated cultural humility into the interaction. So, just a disclaimer, Jill and Eve are a fictional family that I've made up. Jill is a 45-year-old mother with a daughter who she adopted through the public system. Jill is a second-generation Nigerian immigrant and is a nurse at a local hospital. Herself, her mother, and other extended family all live in Ottawa and remain very connected to their Nigerian culture. She asks to meet with me about an incident that happened over the weekend with her 12-year-old daughter, Eve. She says that she really needs someone to talk to. I know that Jill and Eve have a relatively good relationship, but Jill doesn't usually ask to meet with me so urgently, so I assume something serious must have happened. When I meet with Jill, she's crying and very upset. She tells me that over the weekend, her and Eve attended her mother's 75th birthday party. She explains that Eve was on her phone texting the whole time and was talking back to her. Jill says that she was doing all of this in front of her grandmother as well. Jill shares that this has become a new pattern where Eve is talking back to her and even being disrespectful toward her grandma. She tells me that she's heard about the AFCA program and she thinks that this might be what she's experiencing. I ask Jill to explain a bit more about what's happening at home. She shares that Eve never listens to her, talks back, and has even been talking back to her grandma. I ask about if there's any safety concerns. She says safety isn't really the issue. It's just that Eve is being disrespectful and not listening. As Jill is talking, she's becoming increasingly upset and teary-eyed. She says that this is serious and something needs to be done. As I'm listening, I'm thinking that what Jill is describing kind of sounds like typical teenage, preteen behavior. I decide to provide some psychoeducation about ages and stages and tell Jill not to be so hard on herself and that this seems relatively normal and she shouldn't worry too much. Jill leaves feeling unheard and hopeless. All right, so how could I have incorporated cultural humility into this interaction with Jill? So the first piece is compassionate self-reflection and self-awareness. So this involves thinking about how your lived experience influences how you interpret situations and how you view others. And it also involves being aware of what you might not know. So in this context, I could have reflected on the fact that I've been raised in Western culture and thought about how that might be influencing how I'm interpreting the story that Jill is telling me. And I might have also thought, I know some things about the Black experience in Canada, but I don't really know that much about Nigerian culture or whether this is an important part of Jill's identity. The next part involves responding with curiosity. So that may have involved thinking, in my culture, this isn't really that big of a deal. It's kind of viewed as typical, but Jill seems really upset about this. I think I should probably ask some more questions. The next piece is being open and teachable. So acknowledging and being ready to learn about the experiences and the beliefs of others. So that could have looked like taking the time to ask to hear more about the situation and why this is weighing so heavily on Jill. And then the last and very important component is relationship building. So that would have involved validation and listening with compassion and finding a way forward together. So I would recognize that Jill is really struggling and that I need to be there for her. So let's take a minute, rewind, go back to my interaction with Jill to demonstrate what it would have looked like if I incorporated more cultural humility into the interaction. So Jill has told me that Eve has been recently talking back, being disrespectful towards her and her grandmother, and that this feels really serious for her. So I may reflect on the fact that, when I'm listening to this, it sounds like typical teenage behavior, but I was raised in a Western culture, and while it might not sound serious to me, it is weighing very heavily on Jill. I use my cultural awareness to reflect on what I know about the Black experience and Black culture, and I hold this knowledge in my back pocket, but don't make any assumptions based on this. As Jill finishes talking, I say to her, "Wow, I can really tell that this is really upsetting for you. Do you think you could tell me more about what this experience has been like and the effect that it's having on your family?" Jill explains that in her culture, it is completely unacceptable to treat grandparents and other elders with disrespect. She expresses that she feels so ashamed that this is happening and feels that her mother is disappointed in her. I validate how difficult it must be for her as a mother. She opens up to me about the challenges of being a second-generation immigrant. She finds it really challenging to balance all the different expectations. She says that she really values her Nigerian culture and thinks there's a lot of importance in the parenting that is a part of her culture, but that she's really finding it hard to manage, and that this isn't what she envisioned when she thought about what motherhood would be like. I tell Jill that while the behavior that Eve is displaying may not meet the eligibility to be considered AFCA or for her to have access to the AFCA program, I tell her that I want to continue to support her in any way I can. I offer to schedule another check-in meeting with Jill next week and ask if she thinks it would be helpful to talk to a family counselor that specializes in working with second-generation immigrants. She says it would be helpful, and I tell her that I'll put together a list of counselors and have it ready for our meeting next week. So that's how the interaction could have gone. And again, it's never going to be perfect, and that's where the humility piece comes in. So I'm going back to the quote from the past video that says, "We have to leave our heart open to continue to listen, learn, and grow." It's not going to always go smoothly, but we're human. All we can do is bring the knowledge that we have and be open, self-reflect, and bring humility to the interaction.